So it's been quite a few months since we got the first round of Apple Silicon Macs, and they've been a smashing success by all metrics. So I figured that today we should go back in time to look at some absolutely terrible Apple Silicon hot takes that have aged like milk. So I did some digging, and I also asked you guys to send me some stuff over on Twitter. By the way, follow me at Luke Miani, and we came up with a really interesting list of very amusing tweets, comments, and articles about Apple Silicon from either during or before Apple's announcement at WWDC last year, and we're going to see just how poorly these comments have aged. So it's no secret that Apple has its naysayers. People are always writing articles about how Apple is doomed because they didn't make the new iPhone round enough or something stupid like that. And with the switch to Apple Silicon, let's just say that sort of went into overdrive a little bit. And I figured now that the transition is well underway and has been honestly really, really smooth, it would be funny to sort of go back in time and look at what people thought was going to happen. Specifically the people that thought it was going to be a disaster. Like, for example, this headline. What if Apple's new Mac chips are trash? Microsoft's Surface notebooks could stand to gain if Apple stumbles in transitioning from Intel to its own Mac chip design. Ooh, yeah, that Core i3 Microsoft Surface with 4 gigabytes of RAM that costs nearly $1,000 is looking really, really tempting now that there's a fanless MacBook Air that outperforms 15-inch MacBook Pros. And those really effective and well-received commercials are proof of that.
I love my games.
So a lot of these hot takes actually come in the form of YouTube comments that I found on my previous videos. Specifically, there were two that I looked at. One of them was my video immediately after WWDC last year where I posed the question whether or not you should continue to buy Intel Macs while we were waiting to see what the first Apple Silicon Macs were going to end up being. And the comment section had some very interesting hot takes. Active cooling. Apple still can't figure out how to adequately cool Intel Silicon after more than 10 years. So I think this person was hypothesizing that Apple Silicon would run hot, which obviously it does not. The first Intel Macs were introduced in January 2006. The first version of Mac OS X to drop support was Snow Leopard that was released in August 2009. That should give you an idea about the potential lifespan of any new Intel Mac bought today. No. So this one, I guess you could say, hasn't fully aged because we don't know how long current Intel Macs are going to be supported, but the transition was very, very different. You really can't compare 2006 and 2021 when it comes to OS support because Apple wasn't releasing major OS versions every year back then. 2006 was when Apple was still charging for software updates, not to mention that the mid-2000s were a period where computers were becoming obsolete in less than 5 years. Apple Silicon will be a nightmare during its early years. Buy Intel Mac whilst you still can. Both of those sentences have aged pretty poorly because Apple Silicon so far really hasn't been a nightmare. There have been fewer initial issues with Apple Silicon Macs than with previous Intel Macs. I think that's pretty safe to say, and that's even including software compatibility. Almost everything that you could run on an Intel Mac will still run on an Apple Silicon one, and sometimes, even if it's running through Rosetta, it's still faster. There have been some x86 casualties, but it has been far from a mess, not to mention the fact that buying Intel whilst you still can would have ended up costing you quite a bit of money as they have depreciated pretty severely. Here's a screenshot that I've been sitting on for like a year now. Apple Silicon can never be Pro. It's a reduced instruction set. People just don't understand what the difference between ARM and x86 is. x86 focused on complicated variable length instructions that could have more than one operation, whereas RISC uses fixed length instructions that can perform one operation. With enough time and good enough chips, which are clearly had both by x86 and ARM manufacturers, there's really not a ton of difference that would actually be noticeable to the end user. So to say that it's not pro is nonsense. Wow, these hot takes are really bad so far. I'm gonna go bash my head on a wall, so here's a message from our sponsors while I go do that. Salutations, viewers. It is I, Fancy Luke, and I'm here to inform you of a simply sensational promotional offer from my friends at WeVPN. If you haven't heard of WeVPN, it was created by some longtime industry veterans that left the big VPNs behind to make a simple, affordable, and trustworthy service that you can rely on. There are lots of VPNs out there, but WeVPN is laser focused on protecting your browsing without storing any data whatsoever. Now look, I'm a fancy guy, so I only watch Downton Abbey, but chances are you probably watch other things as well, and WeVPN's streaming unblocking gives you access to local libraries of over 350 streaming websites. WeVPN has a ton of great features, is easy to use, plus they support the channel. The summer sale is live now, so give it a try. A 2-year service plus an extra 3 months free is 74% off for just $2.59 per month. Plus, if you're fancy like me, then you can use code Luke for an additional 10% off with the link in the description below. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a gala to attend. Wait for ARM Macs to drop and buy the Intel Macs at a heavy discount while Apple tries to get rid of old inventory. This one isn't as much an Apple Silicon bad hot take, although clearly they've underestimated how compelling Apple Silicon Macs would be. This is mainly just a lack of understanding at how manufacturing computers works. When Apple is going to be releasing a new product, the one that it's replacing is going to scale down in production so that they're not, going full steam ahead and then all of a sudden left with warehouses full of unsold iMacs. That's not really how it works. There's also this very clickbaity and wordy article from around WWDC time called "When Apple Moves Mac to ARM, Is It Time for Mac Users to Move to Windows?" Wow, what a logical leap in that one, huh? Within the next 7 years, he's saying, oh no, Intel computers will be obsolete. That's not really saying a whole lot. Most computers right now are going to be slow or obsolete in 7 years. And from saying that he's going to have to replace Intel Macs, he brings up the question, when hardware needs to replace, it becomes a natural time to consider alternatives. That in turn opens the door to the question of upgrading, not to a Mac, but to Windows. That is an argument that you could make at any point in time when buying a new computer. That has nothing to do with Apple Silicon whatsoever. But while that article is clickbait, it pales in comparison to these words given by Ma Ung, Chief Executive Editor of PC World, who says, let me just say it out loud, okay? Apple is full of it. I'm referring to Apple's claim that its fanless ARM-based MacBook Air is faster than 98% of PC laptops. Apple is claiming that the new MacBook Air using the M1 chip is faster than 98% of all laptops sold this year. Does that mean that this new fanless MacBook Air is faster than Asus's stupidly fast Ryzen 4000 based GeForce RTX 2060 G14? Or the Alienware Area 51M? Wow, what a stinker of a take. It's kind of like saying, look at this, I bought the fastest production car that you can buy right now, and then the PC Mag guy goes, oh, but what about F1 cars? They're faster than that. Yeah, that's why I specified production car. It's different. This next batch of truly terrible hot takes comes from one of my first ever Apple Silicon videos. This was a video that I published back in 2019 that was entitled ARM Macs Coming in 2020. So that was a little bit fortuitous, but as you might imagine, given that that video predates the transition announcement by almost a year, a lot of the comments were a bit of a mess. So you're saying that we are gonna pay about $3 or $6 grand for a glorified iPad? And with zero way to upgrade, they would be obsolete as fast as their phones, and that's not good at all. But oh well, who knows? Well, clearly not you, dear commenter, because, first of all, obsolete as fast as their phones, They're literally the longest lasting phones that you could buy. Apple supports the iPhone 6s, which came out in 2015. So clearly that's nonsense. What kind of a price interval is $3 or $6 grand? You're basically leapfrogging the entire Mac lineup. Not to mention the fact that, are they assuming that it would be as powerful as an iPad with no additional innovation? Okay, this one's short and sweet. End of Apple as we know it. I guess this one's not wrong, but not in the way that they intended it. Here's a good one. Please stop talking about it. It won't come in the next few years. It's not practical. Oh, sorry, I won't come in the next few years. Not practical, not gonna happen in a few years. Let's see, how long ago was that? 1 year ago? Nice. All right, buckle up. This one is a doozy, and it's going to have to be a full screener. It takes Intel and AMD literally years to develop a new chip. That's literally all they do, not to mention they spend decades perfecting their technique and manufacturing process. There's no way that you could convince me until it happens that Apple could crank out new chips that compete with the major players that quickly. And as for workstation processors, even AMD and Intel struggle to update those very often, so I don't see Apple ever switching to that type of system. The fact is, it's easy to take an ARM processor and tweak it a tiny bit. It's another thing to take the basic architecture and scale it to something that competes with Intel and AMD laptop and desktop processors. There's a reason no one else has done it, and I have high doubts that Apple will do it at all, and if they do, it's going to be about like the last time they tried to make their own computer processors go. How did that go again? Oh right, the company almost went bankrupt and they started using Intel chips. Whew, what a mouthful, and wrong in every possible way. First of all, you can't be convinced until it happens. Well, are you convinced yet? Second of all, a lot of the hot takes about Apple Silicon seem to be, oh, well, Apple just can't come out of nowhere and make chips that are going to compete with Intel and AMD. Guess what, folks? It's not out of nowhere. They've been making chips for 10 years. And that line that was saying, no one else has done it, why should Apple? I mean, who else but Apple, right? They're the biggest, richest company in the world. If anyone's going to pour billions of dollars into chip development, Apple's the company to do it, and clearly it has started paying off for them. This one's a fun one. This is like going backwards. A lot of pro-level applications aren't designed to run on ARM architecture. Microsoft tried this with Windows RT, no one bought them. We may see a lot of developers and production creators switching to Windows or Linux. I guess, did people then just not think that Apple would have anticipated that? Did they think that Apple would just launch products with zero application support and expect people to buy them? Of course they were going to anticipate that. ARM scales down, but I've never seen an ARM chip with single-threaded performance that is remotely similar to a 9900K. That did not age super well, considering that the single-core performance of the M1 is better than some of the beefiest processors that you can find. So, oops. It is kind of fun to look back on all these hot takes and see how, in fact, quite cold many of them were. Some of them honestly weren't like far off, like they got little bits of it right, but just had their general conclusion completely off. And man, it is really funny to look back on that and see people were kind of freaking out over nothing. It's sort of like when a new iPhone comes out, and like last year when we learned that we weren't going to have 120 hertz displays and everyone was like, oh my god, iPhone 12 is ruined. It's not that big a deal. People thought this transition was going to spell disaster and that nothing would work, and it didn't. It was fine. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think the least hot take was. Let me know with a timestamp in the comments below, and I'm quite curious to see your guys' discussion or any other bad hot takes that you saw that you think are pretty funny. Let me know that stuff in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.